Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Guten Morgen, bonjour, buongiorno, buenos dias. We're very happy to be here with you all. And a big thank you also to the team of the Polyglot Gathering for organizing everything and for having us. My name is Michelle. I have been working at Tandem for almost a year now, and I'm known at the company as the party girl. That doesn't mean that I'm not working and partying all the time, but it's actually my job to organize language parties. You will find out what that means within the next 45 minutes. And it's my first time at Polyglot Gathering, and it's an honor to open the first day of the conference here with our talk, together with my colleague.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Tobias. I'm a co-founder of Tandem and looking after our product. And yeah, we would like to talk about language immersion through live group experiences online. And I hope by the end of the talk it gets a little bit more clear what that's supposed to mean. But before we dive into this topic of immersion, just for everyone who hasn't heard of Tandem before, I want to explain a bit what Tandem is. So Tandem is a language learning and language practicing community. We started it 8 years ago now, have more than 20 million members now. And here on this map you see the countries where we have most members. In the Americas, that's the US, Mexico and Brazil. In Europe, it's Germany, France and Italy, then Turkey, Russia, China and Japan. But we also have a quite sizable community here in Poland. And you can join the community by downloading one of our apps on the App Store or Play Store, or create a profile on the web. And you can pick the languages you are learning and the ones you want to speak, the ones that you speak, and you can pick between 300 languages, and we also support 20 sign languages. And this is how it works. You see on the first screen, this is how you create your profile. You tell us your native language, other languages you speak, and those you want to learn. And then we show you a list of people who learn the languages you speak and speak the languages you learn. And you can check out their profiles and then get into a chat experience with them. It works very much like WhatsApp or Telegram, but has some language learning features. You can correct each other's messages, you can translate or transliterate messages. And yeah, over the years we've been trying to improve that one-on-one learning experience. But also once in a while we like to take a step back and ask more fundamental questions to see in which direction we should develop Tandem. And about 2 years ago, in a big survey that went out to tens of thousands of our users, we asked this question: what is your biggest challenge learning a new language? And maybe you want to take a moment and try to answer that question for yourself. The answers that we received from our community were along those lines: finding interesting and suitable content as a challenge, making the time to learn, staying motivated to learn, finding a group to learn together and hold each other accountable, and finding a great teacher. And then the top 3 answers that we received were those: tracking your learning progress as a challenge, the fear of making mistakes. I think we can all relate to that. And then what surprised us a bit, the top answer that we received to these questions was lack of immersion, understood as the lack of possibilities, being in the circumstances to be really surrounded by the language, to really be able to be exposed to it every single day. And then we thought, can we do something to make the experience on Tandem more immersive? And that started for us as a team going back through situations where we ourselves experienced language immersion. And for me, that meant going back a few years to this beautiful place. At least it's that beautiful on days where there's no smog. That's Santiago de Chile. And I happened to spend half a year there. And for me, this was the first time since school that I started learning a new language again. And I also remember about 2 years before that, I heard Benny Lewis speak at a conference, so I was familiar with the concepts of language hacking. I was never a big fan of school, so I wanted to avoid going to school, and I was trying to figure out how to learn the language kind of on my own. You had the first apps back then already. And one event that I came across back then was this one. It was called the Spanglish Party. It was in a setting of a pub, so yeah, after work, you would meet. There would be usually expats like me who would want to learn Spanish, and locals from Santiago who usually wanted to practice their English. And every 20 minutes they had a little bell that would ring, and you would switch between English and Spanish back and forth. And I remember the first time going there, this was quite an intimidating experience. My Spanish was not very good. I mean, not that it's great now, but it was quite intimidating. I had to leave my comfort zone a lot, speaking in the language. But the setting kind of made it easy. And whenever I left these events, I had the feeling that I really made progress. Wow, I spoke Spanish for the first time for 5 minutes, and so on. So I realized that this was actually very helpful for me, and I became a regular there. And these events actually still happen. I was in Santiago earlier this year, and I went to this event again. So even after many, many years, it's still going on. And there are more events actually of that kind in many cities around the world now. Yeah, so this was kind of the starting point of immersive experience, probably the most immersive language experience I had experienced until then. Then around the same time, when we thought about this question, a new form of social interaction online emerged. You're probably familiar with Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces. It's this audio experience where you're in a room, in a virtual room with other people. There's a stage for speakers, but you can also just join by listening in. And we thought, that's also interesting. That's an interesting new experience. So we built prototypes, also lots of other prototypes that were more about live streaming and other ideas we had about making Tandem more immersive and more of a group experience. But this one resonated most with our users, these online rooms, these online audio rooms. And then also based on this kind of Spanglish party experience, we coined them or called them language parties and launched them 1.5 years ago now. And this is how they look like. So on the first screen you see it's an area of the app, a section of the app where you can go and you see the parties that are currently live. And there are usually around 100 or so of these parties live. The blue one here is a so-called featured party that we push to put it on top of the list, and you will hear more about that later. Then you can just join any of these rooms. You see who's on stage there. You can just be a listener and listen in, but you can also raise your hand, and then the host, the one who created that language party, can call you on stage and you can speak. And you can also create your own parties. It's open to everyone, takes a minute to create one, and it's live, and other people can join your party. Yeah, and about what happens exactly at these language parties, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle again.
Thank you. So we have heard a lot about the product now. What are language parties actually from the point of view of a learner? That might interest all of you. So first of all, it's a conversation with real people from all over the world. So you're gonna join these parties, you're gonna meet people from all over. Then it's also a way to put into practice all the theoretical knowledge you have in your head about the language and really start to speak. It's a way to practice understanding different accents, because there will not be only one English accent you will be hearing, but a lot of different ones from people speaking English from all countries. Then it's also a fun way to spend your leisure time. And you might even hear of countries or culture you have never heard of before. Because they're like small or somewhere else in the world where you haven't been so far, and you are able to get to know those in the parties too. As you can see, Tandem has become a whole network. What once used to be like a one-on-one exchange, you can have the whole group there now. So some facts about language parties. When I talk to people at language parties, when I'm hosting them, and I ask them, what's your favorite feature at Tandem? Most of them tell me it's language parties. So we're super happy to have this feature and how well it is received by all of our members. We have more than 1 million parties started since the product or the feature was launched, and more than 50 million party visits. So what would you think was the longest party so far? Actually, it was 47 hours of only one party. You might be surprised now, like this one person sitting there trying not to fall asleep with a Red Bull in their hand, but actually I can tell you, you are able to pass on the host rights, so you don't have to be the only host of a party trying to keep it alive. You can pass it on, go to sleep for 8 hours, and come back. And what is it that happens at language parties? So first of all, we have the serious language learning. So it's a language learning app. So you find language learning at language parties. For example, some word association games, short stories where you read them together. You can talk about French texts and also culture. You have parties where you are practicing for the typical tests like the TOEFL or the IELTS test. And there are even like pronunciation parties that are specialized on pronouncing words and sentences. Then you also have parties that are cultural related. So for example, you get tips for traveling, you can ask a geologist about their job. It doesn't have to be always this job, but can be any job. You have a community of Käsespätzle lovers. So if you don't know what Käsespätzle is, go and find me afterwards, I can tell you. Then you can have communities or parties where they talk about what you're passionate about, and also things like K-drama and K-pop. And then there are the parties that are really just for hanging out and having fun. So as you can see here, there's the Caribbean vibe, dancing, music. You also have karaoke parties, truth or dare games, people staying up late, practicing singing, doing everything in those parties, talking about Spanish way of living, or even like music guessing games. So there is no limit to the creativity of parties, and like these topics are all invented by our members. Unlike all those parties that I have showed you so far, we also have parties that are created in collaboration with Tandem. So it's not by the members, but either by us or by one of our partners in collaboration with us. And they sit on top of the list. They are highlighted in blue, and they are the first party you will see when you open the Parties tab. So if you're new to the feature, you're gonna see this featured party first. As I said, they're all organized in collaboration with us, so we're agreeing on title, description on the topic in general, how long the party will be, etc. And the hosts are either language teachers, language experts, influencers, or Tandem ambassadors. Tandem ambassadors are people within the community who are super passionate about languages and are motivated to support others and give something back of what they have learned. And our goal with these featured parties is to offer high quality content. So how are they actually used for language learning? There are 3 different types of these featured parties, how you can learn a language with them. There is the bilingual party that has only a small part of the practice language and a big part of the explaining language. That's suited for the beginners mostly. So we have an example here with the 7 ways to apologize in Spanish. So there will be a big amount of English explaining all the Spanish expressions, and then a small amount of Spanish where you learn actually these expressions and also can practice them. Then there's the bilingual party that's 50-50. So there are two languages that can be the explaining language, but also the practice language, depending on what you are learning. So you can join them. In that case, they are practicing Portuguese and English, and they're having a word game where they ask you first, like, what is your practice language? Is it English or Portuguese? Then you get a word in that language. And it's also for all levels, because you try to create a sentence. And that could be super simple if you're still a beginner, or super complex if you're already advanced. And then there are the monolingual parties that are the ones where we strictly try not to use other languages. So this one, for example, is in German. We're playing a German word guessing game, and we just stay in German for the whole time. And here's some of our typical featured parties. So on the left side, you can see the event-related parties. For example, the Welcome to Tandem party. It's a regular party I am hosting to welcome new members to the community. Also to the parties feature, you can go there, network a little, or ask questions about the feature and the whole app. And we also, for example, hosted a fundraiser party for the earthquake affected when the earthquake happened in Turkey and Syria. So we have a Turkish Tandem ambassador who was hosting this, informing people, giving a platform for exchange. And then we also have parties that are like this serious language learning that I was talking about earlier. And for example, we have an Italian party here and an English one, all for grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, whatever you want to practice with these languages. And of course, we also have some fun feature parties, for example, Tandem's Got Talent, where people are joining, they're singing, they're grabbing their guitar, they have their piano ready, and they're really amazing. They're lasting for hours and hours, and you can just either listen if you don't want to sing yourself or really participate there. And also word game parties like this one in English and Spanish that's a little similar to Scrabble. So you get some letters and you have to be creative and form words either in English or in Spanish. And we also have some feature parties in collaboration with our official partners. For example, the Ask Me Anything parties with Scapago. So far we have them in German and in Mandarin, and you can just join there and ask the language experts of Scapago anything you always wanted to learn about these languages, about learning strategies, also grammar, vocabulary, whatever you had questions about. And the other partner we have is Lingoda, and we are hosting regular Celebrate Your Language Wins party with them. That means these little moments of success when you realized, wow, learning that language was really worth it. Now I can understand something at the bakery, or I can have a job interview in that language. And yeah, we're always happy and open to new hosts, so you don't even have to have a company or be part of a company. You can be a language enthusiast, teacher, influencer, whatever. You can just will to support others on their language learning journey. And yeah, if you're interested and if that sounds interesting to you, then go and find the party girl out there. I will be there for the whole conference. And now we're coming to my favorite part of my job, actually. We're talking about the impact of language party on learners' lives. So first of all, language parties are blending in very easily in your daily life. You don't have to take some extra amount of time for learning the language, because you can be, for example, cooking, ironing, or doing something else while just listening into one of our language parties. I once had a party goer who told me that it's actually like an interactive podcast, so you can either just listen, or if you want, you can go and participate as well. I had one of our members who was riding his bike, listening to the party, and every time he wanted to speak, he stopped, he got into the speaker section, and he spoke with us, so everything is possible. Then it's also working the other way around, like you are immersing into the cultures, into the languages. Like this member who said, I feel like being in the country when I talk to my Italian friends at language parties. So it's all about this immersion aspect that we were talking about earlier. Then it's also boosting your own confidence. There are a lot of people I meet at parties who tell me, oh, I was too shy to speak in a party earlier, I'm super nervous, and I always assure them, but there's nothing about that. I mean, everybody who is here in this community has learned a language at some point, so you don't have to be afraid to speak. And when they take all their courage, they're actually very proud afterwards that they made it. And then some of the parties are also creating opportunities. So I met a member who had lost her job because of her fear of speaking English to natives. But then she became a mother, and she somehow had to support her family. So she learned English with language parties. Like she was practicing the whole time with people from all over the world, speaking to natives, and was actually acing her interview after that, her new job interview, and was able to get a new job in a call center and then support her family again. And I think that's one of the most touching stories I have experienced so far in one of those parties. And then it's also expanding your horizon. I met a member who told me from Brazil, who told me he would have never ever thought that he would speak another language because Portuguese was always enough for him. But then he stepped a little away from the job he had. He took some time. He discovered language parties and Tandem, and then he got into learning English, and a whole new world was opening up to him. And now he's one of our featured parties hosts too, giving something back from what he's learned. So that's also really beautiful to hear about these language learners. And now we talked a lot about the present, like what impact language parties have in the present on our language learners. Let's talk about the future now.
Yeah, we wanted to use this opportunity to be in a room here together with language experts, language enthusiasts, to put some thoughts out how language learning online could be even more immersive in the future. A direction that's kind of obvious maybe is language learning in virtual worlds. Here are some examples of the experiences that are already online. If any of you have made experiences, it would be very interested to hear your insights, your thoughts on this. My experience is a bit like you can sense how much effort and love goes into these products, but it's not quite a super great language learning experience yet. For example, you have this product here called Immersion, and also the one here on the lower left side, Nountown, where one of the formats is that you are in a virtual room and you get a list of objects that you will have to find and pick up, and you go around and then you find the object and you pick it up and you learn how that object is called in your target language, and then you repeat and you kind of collected it. And it feels kind of tedious. It takes quite a while to walk around that room, and you feel with flashcards I could have learned 10 times as fast as this experience. Or you have experiences like here in the lower right corner, this is Monthly, where you get into a dialogue with a virtual character, but it's quite static. If you answer outside of the lines of what the character understands, it doesn't work. So it's kind of a static experience, and while you move around in a virtual world, it doesn't feel too different from learning that you have with apps or even back in the days with DVDs. Immerse also offers tutoring sessions, and also something that's a bit like language exchange. You can go into rooms, but so far I've found these rooms always quite deserted. But I also found this experience here. This is a language exchange meetup in a virtual world. This is AllSpace, which used to be Microsoft's virtual world that they shut down a while ago, but this language exchange meetup moved to VR chat now, another virtual world. And it's quite interesting. So you enter this kind of planet, it's called. You see these flags that are indicating which languages you could speak in certain corners, or can just walk around and listen from different directions what languages people are speaking. And then you can join one of these groups and just start talking. And the most interesting part of this experience I found is that being represented by an avatar felt to me less intimidating than talking to someone on a video chat, for example. You can see also to some extent people's face expressions with newer VR headsets that's going to be even more realistic. And yeah, I actually quite enjoyed these language exchange meetups online. And maybe, another technology that emerged in the last month is large language models, and you could imagine something like ChatGPT also bringing virtual characters in these worlds more to life, and you can have more realistic dialogues than the static ones that I showed before. So that could be one direction where things are going. We ask our community to kind of evaluate if it's a direction that we should create an offering for, and send a survey out. And so far the result was that only 4% of our Tandem community currently has a headset and visits virtual worlds on a regular basis, which we found quite small. Out of this 4%, 90% were interested in VR language events online. So we concluded for now that maybe it's a bit too early, but who knows, maybe we're not too far away of having more people in our community who would be able to join, and then offering something along those lines for them. And then the last thought, maybe a bit provocative, maybe the future of language immersion is not in the online world and more in the offline world. So here you see photos of Tandem meetups that we started to run in the last month all around the world. And what we realized is that these meetups, they exist in many cities around the world, but mostly it's the big cities, it's the cosmopolitan cities. But at the size that our community is now, and with our digital product being able to connect people, it's actually feasible to run these events in smaller places as well, in like smaller towns where there might be people in your city that speak a language that you're learning, and you could go into a language exchange, but it's hard to find them and hard to connect. So that's an avenue that we definitely want to discover, explore more. And also, if anyone here in the room would be interested in running a language exchange meetup in their city, please, speak to us. We are very interested in collaborations there. Yeah. And are there any questions?
So yes, we have 3 questions so far, well, 4 already, so the others also feel free to ask. So the first one, can you imagine other ways of language learning in VR besides just meetups in virtual spaces?
Very good questions. So the experiences that currently exist are the ones that I showed, the more static ones where you're in some kind of environment and you're basically just learning vocabulary, not even expressions or chunks, it's just vocabulary. And then these more like meetup social spaces. Not sure, I actually would like to pass on the question to the audience if somebody else maybe has even tried something beyond this. So far I haven't discovered it and haven't ideated around this to develop ideas beyond those experiences that currently exist.
Right.
Yep.
So the second question, what do you think of the concept of crosstalk? I speak in my native language and you speak your first language. Have you considered adding it in some form?
Yeah.
So actually, that's also a really good question, but it's up to you. So you can always decide to speak either in your own native language and listen to the other one speaking in their native language, or switch it around, speaking in your practice language, as well as the other person speaking in their practice language. You can even have a dialogue for a monolingual dialogue for 15 minutes and then switch. So it's really completely up to you. It's nothing we integrate into the product, but it's up to the members who join the parties or a one-on-one chat, a one-on-one exchange, how you divide these 2 languages between you.
A great app. How come Tandem is more popular in some countries compared to others? Is it because in those countries more people want to learn a language?
Yeah, so Tandem as a product is most appealing to younger people. So our average member is 18 to 25. And so it's usually people who learn languages because they want to study abroad, they want to move abroad, maybe they can get a better job in their home country, in their hometown. When they speak English, they get access to different circles of friends. So this is the main motivation. And you can imagine in some countries, these motivations or these patterns or these motives are more common than in others. And these are the countries where we see a lot of users. And then we also see a lot of users in countries where there are expats, where people coming to the country and they have to learn the language to live their daily lives. And this is what we roughly see the countries where we are popular. It's maybe not so much connected around, in general, people wanting to learn a new language, but more connected why people are learning a new language and then feeling drawn to a product like ours that offers you language exchange or language learning, language practicing, also in combination with making new friends and finding pen pals around the world.
There are a lot of parties for big languages, English, Spanish, but not so many for smaller ones. Do you have thoughts about how this could be improved?
Well, just start them. It's very much a reflection of the languages that are predominantly learned in our community, and it's English, and then for a long time, no other language, and then you have languages like Spanish, German, French on a similar level. But yeah, we would love to see more language parties around smaller languages, and the way to foster that is to just start them. So go ahead and start parties in all the languages that you would like to practice and speak.
So when we're talking about language parties, you don't have to be a pro yet. So I can also recommend you, if you're learning a small language and you're having trouble to find other people speaking that language, you can start a party on your own and you will automatically attract people who learn this language. So that's also a way. You don't have to be an expert in that language yet. If you're a completely beginner and just want to talk about the language or a little practice in the language parties are the place to do that.
I just created an account as you spoke. Can you detail the benefits of Tandem Pro?
Bit of a commercial break. So yeah, for those who are wondering how Tandem sustains itself, our model is a freemium model. A lot of the functionality of the app is for free, but for certain functionality you have to subscribe, a subscription, and that subscription is called Tandem Pro, and you get features like finding people in your city, being able to travel the world and find people in other places. Also, you don't see ads. If you are not paying, you see ads in the app. You get more visibility in the community and a couple of other features. You see who visited your profile and so on.
So I think related question, could you tell us about the subscription fees and about subscription flexibility?
Okay.
Yeah, so the subscription fees are along the lines of what you're used to pay for other language learning apps, but there are also discounts that you get. We have promotions and so on. Depends also a bit in which country you are. So there's no like one answer there, but if you check the app, you will see what subscription options are available for you.
Isn't it a bit intimidating having to talk to a large audience?
Actually, from my experience, I can tell that language parties help with that, because you don't actually see the audience. Not like here, like we see all of your faces, but they are there. You see the profile pictures, but you're basically talking with your phone like in front of you. So it's not that intimidating like being in the real world. So actually, language parties are like the first step to going out there and talking to a lot of people in the real world.
I find it hard to interact with people just through audio. I'm missing cues, example, someone agreeing, nodding, knowing when they are done speaking. Any advice?
Well, also from experience, I can tell you get used to it. So it's a different kind of language learning. You adapt to that. You listen to different cues, actually, in the voice of people. And it's possible to do that without the nodding, without the mimic you can see in the face. Maybe you just need to get used to it first, but yeah, it's definitely also a way to do that.
I would like to be able to schedule a party for some time in the future so others could join beforehand and be notified later.
Yeah, that's a feature we are currently working on, so maybe 2 months of patience and you will be able to do exactly that.
Are you planning to include LLM technology in Tandem? If yes, in what form?
Yeah, we are currently experimenting with this, with kind of an open approach to see what actually works for us. We're currently running an experiment, for example, it's only on Android and only to a small subset of users where we're offering an AI language exchange partner to see how that resonates with people. We will also experiment with directions of creating conversation starters with LLMs, because it's feedback we often hear that people are struggling in their conversations to get beyond a hi and how are you, and to offer personalized conversation starters based on the profile information of your chat partner. We can also imagine using LLMs to make it easier to create flashcards out of your conversations, for example, saving vocabulary that you learned, and a few other directions that we are experimenting with right now. Large language models, so something that ChatGPT, Google Bard, these technologies that you can use where you give these large language models an input and it gives you a more or less reasonable output, a natural language output back. And for example, what you can do is, let's say you have on your profile that you like chess, and then we could and your chat partner is wondering what conversation starter to use, what question to ask you next. We could suggest them to ask you, when did you learn chess, and things like that, yeah.
Okay, and the last one, have you considered adding an audio-to-text transcription feature to the chats?
Yep, that's also one of the features we have on our list. I can't tell exactly when we're going to launch this, but so we are talking here about the one-on-one chat experience, not the language parties, where audio messages are quite popular, but we currently don't offer yet to transcribe the audio message into text. But for learners, that's of course very useful that you can listen and read at the same time. And for the longest time, the technology wasn't quite there. It would work well for English and not for other languages, but it's getting better and better, and also technology that's available on your device. So your iPhone or Android phone does this for you, so we don't have to send it to a server with some kind of delay. But this becomes more and more feasible now, and then we want to add it as well. Yeah, if there are no further questions, then thank you very much. And yeah, hope to talk to many of you over the next days.